All right, here we go. Ready to start. And thank you everybody for making your time to be here. I promise you, you're going to have a very enlightening 1 hour. And it's not enlightenment in the sense of spiritual enlightenment, but just getting a completely new perspective on life, time, and productivity. As you could see on your screen, and you've probably seen that your screen is in two parts, or if it's not, then there is these three red buttons on the right side. If you click on them, then you'll have a chat window coming in, and you're most welcome to type things, especially your name and where you're from. I see a few people have got started, and so we know who's coming in. I'm told some people have some difficulty in getting on to the call. The link and all that, and they should be here in a moment or two. Meanwhile, let's start, because I'd like to respect the time that you've made to be here, and that's a great starting point where it comes to time management and productivity. So this is a webinar about biohacking, and you've heard about it. You've probably seen some of my videos, and you probably read a little about it. Maybe you did your own research, or you read stuff that I've been writing to you. But my promise to you is that in the next 1 hour, I'm going to expose you to certain things which make you think completely differently. And one of the things that makes you think differently is when you start thinking about the concept of time itself. Now you'd see on your screen that there is a poll that I've let out anonymously, because time impacts us in various ways, and it in fact impacts our relationships, it impacts our emotions, it impacts our physical being. As too much to do, you tend to get tired. And what I'd like you to do, just so that I know where all of you are from and I can give you the most out of this webinar, I'd like you to just click on whatever is your most pressing problem and vote for that, and we'll get to know who we're talking to, But rest assured that whether it's about tiredness, or it's about stress, or it's about health, or it's about clarity, focus, forgetfulness, biohacks are hacks, which mean clever things to do, but not just tips and techniques in this particular context where I'm coming from, but in fact practices to adopt, which change yourself, you change your biology. I'm going to talk more about that as we go on, but rest assured, you're going to understand how the change of biology is going to result in productivity, and that's exciting. So because we're talking about productivity, definitely this is a webinar for entrepreneurs who are looking at increasing their productivity, and professionals who feel the pressure of deadlines and things like that. But it is also for people who are multitasking a lot, and working women who juggling multiple roles, and consultants who are doing this and that, and especially for achievers who are already doing a lot, but now that they're doing so much, they kind of have that realization that I can do a lot more with me. There's a lot more potential I have, and maybe there is not enough time, or maybe I can just produce more, I can do more stuff. Or there is this category of people who I call the boss people, who are always busy, always overworked, always striving to do something, but unfortunately always stressed. And if that's anyone you identify with, then rest assured you're going to have a lot of answers. I'm not here to sell anything to you. I'm here to empower, and that's my goal. My big promise is that you'll walk away with a means of empowering your productivity, biohacks, and I'm going to do things with you in the session itself, so that you can feel what life can be using biohacking. So that said, at the end of this, I'd like to urge you to stay right on till the end, because I've got a really cool gift. It's a productivity tool. It's called Double Workday Productivity, and it's a toolkit. And that toolkit puts together everything that this webinar is about, There are no replays for this webinar, so it's good you're here and don't expect it again. And you could actually get onto calls with me, and we'll open up dialogue on WhatsApp and Facebook and stuff like that, so that you can really understand what this whole biohacking thing is about. So it's there because I have this objective of empowerment, and I'd like to give it to you. But it's still the end, because it starts making sense as you progress with me. You know, right now you're coming from that pole kind of thing, and you know what your pressing problems are, what time, more time could mean, you know, just 24 hours in a day. I mean, I need more. But in the next few minutes, in the next 10 minutes perhaps, I'm going to burst every myth about what time is really about, and what peak productivity is about, and what stress is about, and how none of these are related to any paradigm that you currently hold. You can be working with zero stress and peak productivity. So if that sounds like a good thing, then you're in the right place. So there are a lot of people who gain a lot out of this, and I'm flagging a few who have certain characters that they recognize in themselves, and I really want this to be meaningful to you. That's why I'm flagging this off, you know, because there are people who really intend to be there for their kids' birthdays, or in the school for their important occasion, but a meeting crops up, you know, and then there's this conflict of time, there's a conflict of priority. What's on the A list? There's a fight between husband and wife. There are bad vibes flying all over the place. And there are other people who sleep like they could die, or who even wake up like, oh, I'm not dead yet, but I've got to go through another day. Now, these are things that happen to a lot of people, and they have cured these things through biohacking, and not just a tip or a technique, but a permanent solution, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. Then, you know, like I said, you could be one of those achievers who realizes that there's so much more potential, and love you to make those breakthroughs. Or you could be one of those who's perpetually planning to go to the gym and never gets the right date or the occasion. And procrastination can happen for various things, not just going out of shape. You can have this thing which people now start attributing to the attention deficit disorder, but it's just this thing about, even kids have it, you know, teenagers especially, about getting bored so easily. Nothing is able to sustain interest. And diverse as these things look like, they're very common. And one of the things that is common to all of them is that they kill productivity. If you keep forgetting things, you do half the things that you plan to, and you forget half of the other things, besides not being able to do them right. Like, for instance, you may have forgotten the last enjoyable family holiday you had. So it's just because you never had the time for it, you know, or you never could take out the money for it, or just couldn't put together things for it. And in my list of things, a holiday is personal productivity at the highest, because that's what your productivity towards your family is about. And then, you know, finishing things, that becomes a big challenge. And the biggest of all is not knowing how things can change. If that's a big question mark, then you could be just going around in circles, thinking that, somewhere, somehow, a solution is going to appear. And I just have to keep doing what I'm doing. But that's just taking you around in a circle, not getting very far, you see. So today, this 1 hour that you're investing is likely to help you change from that perspective, and help you understand that there is a solution and what can be done about that. So are you excited? Good, I'm glad. I think I should expect some more chatting happening here. So if you're excited, you could write that. Or alternatively, I think we probably switch off the chat. because it tends to be a distraction as well, doesn't it? So anyhow, eyes focused on screen, and let's get back. The bottom line, all these things, all of that had to do with time, right? Everything affects everything with time. You think, and you think you don't have time to do the things that you don't do. But the truth is, you don't need time. Now, let me explain this. Why do you not need time? There is this lady, Pooja Bansal, based in Hyderabad, and she has written this, which I guess you could read, but she started at a place where she was like 90 kgs plus. She had two grown-up kids in college, post-college type of thing, and she was left to herself, to her own devices by her husband, sort of. And so there was not very much that she was looking forward to in life. And then she was naturally, with the weight, putting on a lot of other conditions of the body, which actually put her in a position where when she met me, she was taking 16 pills a day. And I said, that's not a very good thing, yeah? So we got into this program, and she set diet goals. And fast forward 12 months later, she says, I'm 20 kilos less on half my earlier medication, and she's in fact been on 3 enjoyable trips in that 1 year, which is kind of unprecedented. But then she said that it's enough to say that we've gone there after ages. And then there was this guy, Bharat Nakula, who was, he met with 2 accidents, and he's got 8 metal bits in his body. His family business got wiped out, and his job was in a bad shape. He was also in a financial mess, not just because of the accidents, but various factors. And why I titled this slide A for alignment is because I'm going to take you through A for alignment in more detail, and especially take you through this one line which he says changed his life in some way. But he says that, is that what you want? That line has got me the life and business I really want. Now, funny that it might sound, but that line, that one line, and that concept of alignment is a sort of the A for alignment thing is biohacking. So you may have ideas about biohacking, and I'm going to explain more about that, but a little about me so that you know where you're getting all this dope from. I've been a consultant and coach for 30 years now, and I've created this process of biohacking to multiply productivity and various other things, health benefits, as you've seen, and a lot of stuff that doesn't take time but just gets you results. Coached more than 1,500 people and studied from energy masters in 5 countries. My specialty is helping people design their energy environment. You know, right at the outset, I told you this webinar is going to be about empowerment. And I'm going to talk about what this energy environment and resonance is. That's what it's about. But on a personal front, I live in NCR, Delhi. I practice Tibetan Buddhism, and I love travel. So we love doing that when we can. And the one thing that I feel is worth mentioning is that I have this whole bug about human consciousness, because ever since I started learning from these energy masters and I started understanding human potential, I have a strong belief that through empowerment, you and I can do great things. So in fact, in one of the videos, don't know if you saw it in the series in your email box, but I have mentioned that today on the first page of Google, there's not very much sensible stuff on biohacking. But through these series of webinars that I'm conducting, I hope you're going to have your case study up there, because you could write, you could make videos, you could do things and tell the world that personal empowerment is really closer than they think it is. So coming to the topic on hand, doubling your productivity. Biohacking is the #1 skill you need to achieve this without time management, without time management, because everybody tends to think that you can be more productive if you had more time. But my submission is that there is nothing that you can do. The whole concept of time management is insane. You want peak productivity? You can never get it by managing something that's outside, external to you. Time is not in your control. Time doesn't even know that you exist. Time was there before you and will stay after you. How can you ever think of managing something which does not recognize you? The only thing you can manage is what's internal to you, inside you. And that is your energy. And which is why when I talked about studying from energy masters in 5 countries, it makes sense now, because that is something you can control. When you understand this concept that, let's take relationships, for example. You think, I don't invest time with my spouse, or I don't invest time with my kids, and that's why I really don't know who they are now. That happens, for those of you who are recently married, it may not be happening. But for those of you who are 10 years in the marriage, or the 7-year itch maybe and thereafter, you start realizing that you don't know as much as you would like to about which interests your kids have and things like that, or even your parents for that matter. The kind of interaction you had as a child with them, the kind of spontaneous happiness that you got is a little forced, a little social, a little uncomfortable, and often abrupt as you grow. And that does not have anything to do with the fact that you can't or don't have the time to spend with your parents, or vice versa, with your kids or your spouse. It has to do with the fact that you don't have the energy. Because if with the right energy, you spend even a minute with somebody, let's go away from the family, let's go into a business deal, let's talk business productivity. 1 minute with a prospect can get you deals worth many, many zeros after the one. Lakhs, crores, whatever you call it. Just 1 minute well invested. Whereas you could spend 1 year and not get the same kind of results. Because that energy has not come into that relationship. And that has nothing to do with managing time. It has nothing to do with managing priorities. Those are all buzzwords that are created to sell books and courses and management gyan. What it has to do is with the kind of energy that you have. So let me get into this a little more deeply. Energy is what we're talking about, and biohacking for productivity is what I claim that results in. So what is biohacking? If you're talking about energy, you might immediately think of the gym, sports, exercise, that sort of stuff. Well, yes, but you know what? That's only for the body. And the reason we've got this visual of ice over there is because the ice is as gross as the body is. If you want to sculpt it, you've got to get a hammer and chisel and maybe do something with it. But if you look at something like water, you could probably sculpt that ice a little better. And that's yoga, meditation. These yogis, they just sit around like we've read in the mythological tales for years, and they don't put on a flabby body. They still remain reasonably muscular because they're able to control their body with mind. And in fact, yoga is the connection of body and mind. That's the joining. And stuff like that, But that's not biohacking either. It's working with the body, the mind, and the spirit. So now you see we're getting a level subtler. From ice to water to steam is very, very powerful. You can run steam engines with steam. I give you a couple of jets of steam and you can shape that block of ice any way you like it. And this is where the power of biohacking, of using steam, of using mind, body, and spirit together, scores over your health. but it has ramifications in every aspect, which we'll talk about shortly. So this is then a pictorial depiction of steam. In fact, it's not a pictorial depiction of steam, it's a pictorial depiction of the Chinese alphabet for qi, and it's written as QI, qi. And this qi is life force energy. This is the energy that is present in us and in dogs and in plants and in tables, chairs, animate, inanimate, everything. And this life force energy drives us. And thanks to the fact that I've had this great opportunity to learn from both yogic and Indian masters, as well as Chinese and Tibetan masters, I would like to share with you that this symbol of qi was probably written down as a symbol only about 2000 years ago when they invented the language. But the meditators of 4,000-5,000 years ago discovered these energy meridians and how energy flows. And when they invented language, used two words to join them and make the word chi, for chi. And these two words, one of the words is that hood sort of thing, the cap on top and the vertical stroke. And the other word is the cross with the 4 dots on the left inside. So the word on top and outside and the word with the cross and inside are two separate words which come together to form chi. And it's very interesting, you'll find it very interesting when I tell you that the word on top is the word for air. And the word below is the word for rice, R-I-C-E, rice. And it's air and rice that makes life force energy. Now, maybe I'm digressing a bit, but it's very interesting how little we know in science, because it's only about 150 years ago that we kind of invented organic chemistry and discovered that a molecule of glucose with a molecule of oxygen gives you carbon dioxide, H2O, water, and some energy, 686 calories of energy. It's an exothermic reaction. 4,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, those guys already knew it, that glucose is unprocessed food, which is the closest to which is rice. When you're on a drip, the IV fluid in the hospital is glucose. That's what the body can process, which is why packed foods are not so great for you, and which is why you got to eat closest to unprocessed. And breathing, oxygen, glucose plus oxygen gives you carbon dioxide, water, H2O, and chi. That 686 calories is chi. So we've known a lot of these things, and a lot of these things are very commonsensical as we live our lives. We're not very different from how we lived 4,000 years ago, except we've lost control over the most important aspects of our energy. And what you do with biohacking is you control your emotions. Why is that important? Because emotion is energy in motion. So when you are able to control energy throughout what you do during the day, you are having a different kind of response and a controlled kind of response, an aware kind of response to your activity. And if we go back to those relationships, if we go back to the parents, we go back to the kids, we go back to the fighting spouse, we go back to landing up late for events, we go back to the pain points that we've had, forgetting things, missing work, putting on, going out of shape, and all those sort of things. All of that is a consequence of an emotion. It could be an emotion of anger, an emotion of greed, an emotion of guilt, and various others. And all that plays on your energy and results in your reality. And that is when you biohack, is when you know your vibes and others' vibes. And vibes are vibrations. So let me spend another minute on this aspect of energy, because it now seems to you also, to me of course, it now seems to pervade every aspect of your life. And truly, why is this chi in animate and inanimate everything? Because everything is made of atoms. And I'm appealing to your scientific temperament once again. So if you believe that those atoms are there and those atoms are vibrating, there is obviously some frequency that they're vibrating at. And there is that vibration is a constituent of their energy. And when you use those energies together, you get atomic results, which is fission and fusion. And some of the biggest energy harnessing techniques that we have so far invented have to do with nukes. But the bottom line is that those vibrations are vibes. And when you know your vibrations and other people's vibrations, not only do you change vibrations in relationships, but you change vibrations in physicality, because your physicality is like the block of ice, which with your energy, which is like those jets of steam, can be controlled, harnessed, utilized, and a lot can be done with it. So if that sounds interesting, I'm going to show you a video, and I hope this works out, because sometimes we run into this bandwidth issue, you know. So while I load that video, I'm going to just see if we can amuse you with another poll. And we let that pass. Let me just come to the video straight away. This is shot in the France-Spain border. It's the Pyrenees that you see behind me, and maybe the volume would go down because the video plays out of its own volume, which is a little low, but I've got subtitles there. I urge you to follow this video with the subtitles. Basically, what I'm going to do in about 30-40 seconds, that's all, is move my hands. And I'd like you to just pull back from your laptop or computer and make yourself in a place where you can move your hands towards each other the way I show. And I'm going to ask you to get into a sort of clap and then move out of that clap and start getting aware of the feeling between your fingers, right? So that's the long and short of it. Let's hope this plays consistently. Well, you can feel energy in people, you can feel it in trees, you can feel it in nature. But if you want to feel energy right now where you are, try doing this. You know, just bring your hands together and maybe get into a little bit of a clapping. And then slowly stop the clapping and keep the hands together, keep them coming together with some energy, and then slow it down. And then imagine that there is a ball in the middle, and you will actually start feeling this ball. By now, you will actually have a dimension to the ball. Try doing it. This is energy. This is the energy of the clap. This is the energy of your muscles, which has become something that you can actually feel. Do look it up, and do it in an open environment. Right now you're probably in your room, and there's a lot of electricity wiring and various artificial energies around you. But when you bring your hands together with awareness like that, you would actually start feeling an energy ball between them. It's curious and it's beautiful. And why it's important is because these atoms are all around you. And once you start feeling them, there is no taking away from the belief that, yes, I can harness this thing. And biohacking starts there, when you can harness stuff that is energetically available anytime. So that's a happy thing. And the good news is that there are only 3 holdbacks for you to achieve peak performance. And that's what I'm going to take you through now. Just 3 things. Imagine that. For peak performance, the one thing of the 3, the first of the 3, is that you've got to identify that there are these energy vampires, and there are just 4 of them, which suck everything out of you. And you've got to know how to nuke them out, because they're powerful, and you use energy to get powerful yourself. So if that is something that you can do because you learn what they are in the next 10 minutes, and then you work with that double your productivity toolkit that I'm giving out at the end of this webinar. And you most welcome to interact with me on WhatsApp, on Facebook. You would be able to develop your own plan of getting those vampires out of your system and being on top energy all the time. The energy pyramid, as I call it, is an ABCD. It's very, very simple. I mean, thanks to the fact that I've been able to distill the information from so many masters, so many countries, I've been able to boil it down to something which is as simple as ABCD. And A is for alignment, as I told you in Bharat's case. B is for body response. We'll talk a little more about that, because energy is stored in the body, right? It's physical. It's also mental, and that's where clarity comes in. And the physicality again goes to diet. Remember, air and rice, very, very powerful. So if you can understand the nuances of these four things, and it's a little like when you look at the sky and you see some clouds, and suddenly you make out the shape of a dog in the clouds or something like that. And then you say, hey, you tell your friend next to you that, look, I can see a dog in the clouds. And he or she says, what are you talking about? Are you nuts? And you say, no, take a look. And then that's the ear and that's the eyes. And suddenly the friend also sees the dog. And then the friend tells you, yeah, I can see the tail. Now, why am I telling you this? Because this biohacking is a little like that. If you read the toolkit by itself, it may look like, what are you talking about? These are like just plain clouds. But the moment you're able to identify the nose of the dog and the ear of the dog and the eyes, you're going to find the tail and the body and the legs yourself, because it's going to become that crystal clear to you. And that's my hope. That's my expectation as well. So A is for alignment. Alignment of what? Now I've got Bharat's quote here once again, just to remind you that this is one thing you're going to really take away from today. Is that what you want? Imagine you have a parrot sitting on your shoulder, and every time you have a thought about doing something, the parrot asks you, is that what you want? And the doing something could even mean saying something, Is that what you want? Is that what you really want to say? And if you have that cross check at that nanosecond, you're going to change that nano frequency. And the nano frequency, you've seen it change. You have been to meetings and you have sat across and you have got this vibe. This is not the time for me to open my mouth. It could have been in front of your mother-in-law also. It could have been in front of your biggest client also. It happens to everybody because we're all human. We all operate on energy. Baseline is that. Check. Is that what you want? And the exercise in bringing your frequencies aligned is to align what you say, which essentially arises from the way you think. I've got stuff in brackets there, mind giving and the Tibhar cycle and stuff, which are tools that I equip my students with. We won't go into that, but it'll help you a lot to just understand that what you say comes from your thought. What you do are the actions which come from your habits. And your habits are a consequence of the way you think and behave. But we can change your thinking completely by changing your habits. And that's the Tibhar cycle. And the way you be, you're a human being. You're not a human doing. So often we are so caught up in doing so many things that we forget what we feel about it. Feeling is the baseline, and feeling is coming from our mind streams from various births, not just this life. That's our consciousness that is passing through, which if we can just focus on the being of it, the feeling of it, and seeing if our alignment of that feeling is manifesting in what we are thinking or what we are doing, you're going to change your productivity, when to put what forward, all of that. And creating a habit pattern out of it is what explodes the productivity, because we are all creatures of habit, but we are habituated to not even know that there is something about aligning say do be. Now that we know that we can align what we say, what we do, and what we be, we can change our reality completely. There are many benefits. I mean, I'm not going to talk about reality and all because those are big benefits. I'm just going to talk about stuff that you're going to experience tomorrow. Tomorrow, the interactions you have, or tonight, the interactions that you have. If you can just get into this say to be alignment, is that what I really want? And if not, then don't say it, don't do it. There's so much to do. You keep juggling your time, you know. We've become magicians and jugglers. That's all we've become. And that's how those phrases have originated also. We are just comedians around here, managing time, juggling time. No, there's no need for all that. There's no need to juggle anything. You just do it. There are books that people have written on this stuff, you know. It's so funny, but we know it. We just need to be in awareness to practice it. There's this 5-second rule book that you know, if you want to not procrastinate, then in 5 seconds you do it. At least you make a start to it, then there's no stopping you. Basically, what you've done is you micromanaged a micro habit, and I would say you nano manage that habit in awareness, because you're aware much faster than 5 seconds. And there is this feeling of integrity. You know, so often we feel we are doing everything right. Like we're doing everything right for the family, we're doing everything right on the job, but nobody's recognizing us, or how do I put it? We're not getting the kind of results, let's say, right? All that is emotional. Now, when your say do be is aligned, you're going to have such solid integrity because you're in harmony. What you're saying is what you're doing is what you're being. That you're going to just short circuit those kind of emotions. I'm not saying you're going to nuke them out also. You're just going to, they disappear. Your self-worth goes up, your confidence goes up, your focus goes up. And it's focus and stuff like that, which you've got Bharat, the kind of results he's got. You know? It's just one tool, which is one nuclear missile on the first vampire, which puts us out of alignment. The second vampire, the body response. Now I'd like you to look at this old Chinaman here. And this is not somebody I shot or anything. This is just a random picture from Google, which I have inserted to make this page look pretty. But I've got a title there which says Overcoming Physicality. Now look at this man. Doesn't his skin glow? Yeah. I mean, he is probably got the physical energy of a 20-year-old. If he's, I don't know what he does, but he probably pulls rickshaws or something like that, or works in the farm looking at his cap. And just look at him. He could be 105 years old, you know, and many of them are. In fact, the Taoist books which I've read refer to the Yellow Emperor, who was some 300 years old before he decided to call it quits. Our own, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. The court of Bhishma Pitama was gifted with limitless life. So it's because you get your body to respond with RMNE. And this is a deep subject of the energy anatomy, but R stands for respiration, M for movement of muscles, and E for energy. So Qigong is a practice of using Qi, is a practice of moving energy, working with energy. And Qigong has its roots 5,000 years old. But in 5,000 years, you can imagine if you go on YouTube and search Qigong, you'll find plenty of techniques, exercises, meditation, and stuff like that. But there's one thing I'll tell you that you must look out for, and that's why it's not a great idea to learn those kind of things online. Because what's common to all those ramifications of techniques and stuff is that every one of them brings into alignment your respiration, movement of muscles, and energy, RMNE. And energy is not something that you can learn online unless you're learning it with a guided coach, who can uh, talk to you and take feedback from you. And you can become a better recipient of biofeedback. So, how you get that biofeedback and how it works for you, let me give you a simple example. Let's say it's like 7:30, 7:40, and you've got to meet this person for an after dinner coffee at, let's say, 9 o'clock. And what's on your mind, and I'm seeding this in your mind in real time, is that okay, this presentation, and it's an interesting one. It's supposed to get over at 8 o'clock. I hope it does get over at 8 o'clock because I have to meet that person at 9 o'clock. And all the time you are doing something physically. You're probably squirming in your chair, or you're just looking at your computer. Your eyes are moving, or you probably find yourself tapping your table or something like that, the general physicality. Let's take a case where you are actually writing something. Let's say you're writing a document and you got to meet this person at 9 o'clock, and so your hands are moving. That's the M. And if your E, which is the mental energy, is at the 9 o'clock meeting, you're going to find yourself breathing shallow because you've got to have dinner, and then you've got to get in the car, and then you've got to go there. And what if I'm late? And what if he lands up with somebody else? And am I prepared to answer the questions that the other person would have? And all that stories that we put our energy into. So you find yourself breathing shallow. Oh, I've got to finish this. I've got to finish this. You're not breathing like a baby. No, that's not happening, right? But if you create a habit of breathing like a baby and bring the habit of meditative awareness back into what you're doing as a conscious habit, and this is a habit you can develop in 2 weeks. I mean, 2 weeks is a long time. You can be a master in 2 weeks. You would, because it's a habit, bring your energy back to what you're doing, and instead of that thing taking you a half an hour to do, you'll probably finish it in 15 minutes. Well, that's the amount of time it takes to write a document, right? Like, for instance, I'm going to finish this webinar in 15 minutes, but then I moved away from the webinar just so that you have something where you're physically doing something and you can relate tomorrow when you're at work and things like that are happening. Just bring yourself back to your breath. Breathe. Bring your RME and E together, and you save 15 minutes on the spot. When you do that, you also get more youthful. You also get less stressed, and you are inventing that stress unnecessarily. You may finish it in half an hour and still be able to drive your car and have your dinner and meet that guy at 9 o'clock, but you unnecessarily invented stress. Exercising with energy, that is Qigong, and the 3Ds healing, which are things that we talk about in the course, which I do for very, very few people every month. And this is interesting. Yeah, I'm glad this prompt is here. Do nothing. This Chinaman looks like he's doing nothing. And there is a big thing. This is a Zen story of this big crocodile, old crocodile, who had a kind of reputation of being a great hunter. And this young teenage crocodile comes up to him and finds him just sitting there doing nothing, just lying flat on its belly, arms stretched out, legs stretched out, mouth closed, eyes closed, almost like a log, dead. And he said, Master Crocodile is here. Let me show him that I am the next big hunter of this river or whatever. And so teenage crocodile runs or swims up the river and kachak, catches a big fish, some 12 inches long. And catching it in his mouth, it comes up to the big crocodile and says, look, 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 I can hunt, Are you impressed? And this guy doesn't even acknowledge the young chap. He just opens the eyelid so that the young crocodile knows that he's been seen and not impressed. So then he goes down into the water once again, and this time he collects a very huge tuna fish, kind of robust thing, about 2 feet long, and catches it in his mouth and brings it. See, I'm the hunting type. And we're like the same kind of people. So anyhow, now the third time that this teenage crocodile goes back, he hears a big splash behind him. And before he can collect anything, he comes back to see what happened. And there he's seeing this big hunter crocodile with a huge wild boar torn to bits, and he's gashed his stomach, and he's got enough food for the rest of the week now. Now what happened? The big crocodile did nothing, but the boar came there and decided that that's the place it wants to drink water. And one swift action, kachak, the boar was a week-long meal for the real hunter. That, ladies and gentlemen, is productivity. And that is because that old crocodile had set his vibrations, he'd set his frequencies, and he had managed his external environment to be able to get the results, and that's all he was focused on. So that's energetic body response. There is this lady, Monica Gulati. What a wonderful lady she is. She's a cancer survivor, and she says about this. I have a tool with me to take care of my well-being anywhere, anytime. It helps me center myself. The understanding of energy moving in the body via exercise is amazing. Although and humble that she is, she's slowly getting there. But talking of benefits, it'll help improve your concentration, your efficiency, like I demonstrated in the 9 o'clock meeting, which you can apply today, tomorrow, every time. Just bring your RMNE organized. And when you understand energy anatomy, there is a whole science of traditional Chinese medicine, which uses exactly these principles to heal and to commune, because the 3Ds healing is about healing with divinity, which this is not the time and place for. But if this interests you, happy to share more. And it develops that intuitive discretion that we're all always looking for. Moving forward, this is a man who's sort of very close to my wife and I, because he's the Dalai Lama. We are Tibetan Buddhists. And he is, I have a question, whether he's productive. Would you consider him productive? I don't know. I don't know what you know or what you think, but let me tell you this. He is a person who has made a non-country, Tibet is not even a country, something that is empathized with the world over. And more people know about what happened with the Chinese oppression in Tibet than people probably know about women's rights today. And he didn't even have to burn his bra. He's got complete clarity, and what he preaches and practices is equanimity of liking and disliking. Coincidences happen around him. He was given, not he, his country was given a refugee status. They've got several square kilometers of land all over North India and South India near Mysore. And all he is grateful for being there, receiving that. And in that, he sends out such powerful vibrations. The whole equanimity of expectation, reward. The Gita also talks about that, about expectation, rewards, the fruits of labor and all that, to the karma and stuff. But how do you practice it? You practice it with a tool called gratitude. And 24 there is not 24 hours in a day, but I'm not getting into tools in this talk. You implement the clarity with visualization of goals. And there are again books and books written on goals, and you can spend a lifetime reading it. Or you can just in the next 3-4 weeks crack the code which is personal to you with your biology by biohacking yourself. And understanding who you are and partnering with what is powerful. Like for instance, the wave of the ocean. it's got this ego, it's got this self, it's got this thing that I can go and lash against that rock, and it spends its whole life consuming itself hitting the rock. And on the other hand is this deep blue sea, calm, peaceful, pacific, huge, deep. Now, if something really needs change, the wave and the rock are no different from each other. But the wave operating out of ego can do sweet little. It pulls back itself into the ocean, and it can come back as a tsunami. Now, I'm not sure whether you want to analyze this analogy, but I don't want to. I want you to just understand that we are often operating like those little waves out of our ego, and all it takes is to pull back. Now, Dalai Lama comes from that set of ancestry of 5,000 years of meditation, where he can pull back at will, and you can learn to do that. But pulling back gives you that energy reserve, which then makes you explosive. And again, Janice, who was one of the students at the American Embassy School, says that the freedom from knowing that there is no bad energy. This is an answer to some 3 questions that I had posed specifically about an energy experience. And just good energy, bad energy, is that like, dislike. And there's none of that. And as a consequence, the benefits to you are there is no self-sabotage. You remember we were talking about creating habits, habits being the key thing to get to what we want? But you create sticky habits, because habits are things that come and go, the habit of the season type of thing. But sticky habits are what come with clarity. And then the purpose. Why am I here? Where am I going? What am I doing? Having the right expectancy about things. Expectation is different from expectancy. And having that subconscious oneness. These are stuff that can manifest very, very easily, and that's what biohacking does for you. Coming to diet, this is a chart. I'm not going to spend time on this because it's really deep on taken from traditional Chinese medicine. But like the Ayurveda, we have these 3, we have 5 elements likewise, and you have the Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Chinese are a little more deep in that, but it's a framework of energy. And keeping those elements in harmony and identifying which is your element, what do you relate with, is pretty much like Ayurvedic diagnosis also. There's a lot of ancient wisdom which we've kind of not been able to adopt in the modern world. But biohacking is the means to do exactly that. To create sustainable consciousness. You change consciousness and you change sustainably. Why? Because you eat every day. So you can't escape that diet, And if you change your consciousness around that, it becomes a sustainable change, which is not only good for you in your diet and bodily practice, but good for you in your mental and energetic practice at subtler levels as well. Because it keeps reinforcing your energy. And then, of course, sickness prevention is a physical manifestation. And then, like in Pooja's case, where I didn't read that entire testimonial. I don't know if you read it, but yeah, I think I did. She took those 3 trips, for instance. She was so liberated. It was not just that. It's what it did to the mind and to the relationships and to the psychology, because she could break away. And that's the 4th vampire, which you learn how to nuke out. 3 things, just 3 things. And the second 2 I've almost kind of covered in this. The second is very powerful because that's the application. Learning how to shift to the ideal energy frequency. What is your frequency? Like I said about the elements, you have your element and you shape your diet around your element. You shape your thought pattern around your element. Likewise, you shape your energy frequency around it. The crocodile's energy frequency was very different from the teenager crocodiles, because the teenager had certain beliefs which comes out of our education. Our education is so terrible, so unfortunate, but we have lost the Gurukul. We've lost the reason why we are studying. We're just starting to become automatons in corporate houses. That's about all we're doing. It's a different subject. I'm not going to get into that. but it's taking us away from our authentic selves. That's the lamentable part about the generation. And biohacking as a program, as a practice, and as a productivity tool, if you spend a little time finding out why you're doing what you're doing and then do it, what you do will be surefire success. No comebacks. Productivity is about no comebacks. I mean, why does it take us time to, let's say, make a sale? Because we've got to talk to four people, to the person four times, and then handle those objections and this and that, and then make a proposal again, and then revise the proposal again. But if you have the frequency with the proposal and with the client, once is enough. And that frequency comes from knowing why. Why is it that the client needs a particular thing? And then you align with that. So giving you a very practical example so that you can relate with how this energy frequency works. But when you work it at really subtle levels, right? And go trailblazing with that. And the third biohack pillar is your energy environment. So just like that wild boar came into the environment, you will find serendipity happening because you have tuned your body and mind productively. And it's all what I've talked about. The reason you've been able to do that is because you've been able to integrate the 4 biohack system, and you've been able to make that as something that you live by. And as a consequence, you are, aligned with C2B, with the energy anatomy, the RME especially, with the clarity, the purpose, the expectancy and reward, the likeness of it. And you've been able to make sticky habits of doing stuff like that. And then you know what diet works with you, so you have the right kind of rice in the context of chi, being air and rice. So addressing that then creates your external environment. And while your inner frequency helps you play your game the way you want to, with your passion, knowing your passion and applying your passion, your energy environment creates the playground. So you play your game in your playground with your people. There can be nothing more happy than that, more gratifying, more satisfying, more enjoyable. And that's what I wish for you as a consequence. So you have a choice. I mean, this is the bulk of biohacking, which the energy rests on those 4 ABCD pillars, and you can go about it guided with a kind of coaching program, or you could go about it solo. But I would very much like you to be in touch with me and take feedback. Like I said, I'm here to help. I'm here to empower you. You please take that toolkit as soon as Maria makes it available, because you need to know this before you take it, that I've set aside a few slots for the next 3 days, and at no obligation, no cost, fill your place up in the slot, and let's discuss this in more detail in your context. But it's got to be meaningful to you, and it would be only if you had some aha moment today, because otherwise we may not have connected. I'm not the panacea for everything, right? But if you've had aha, I didn't think of it that way, then you kind of start thinking more deeply, because it's all for your productivity and happiness. Nothing else. What else? What matters? And if you feel out of sync with those 4 foundations, then surely, and if you resonated with the first list of who this is for, if you are seeking more clarity, focus, or feeling that you have more potential and something can be done about it, then this is a good time to sort of book your slot with me. And on that slot, on that call, I'll give you the roadmap to getting complete clarity on these things. And I will answer questions for you, and we'll talk more about things that you can do, you can implement. And if we both think it's a good fit, then I would be taking up a few clients, like I said, every month, and we could gravitate in that direction also, but that's completely optional. So just click on the blue button below. Maybe you'll have to scroll down and you'll see a blue button. And if we are working together on the coaching program, for instance, it's 4 weeks, 4 sessions of masterminding, and then you understand what this whole mind gaming and the Tibar and the Qigong exercises and gratitude to 4 and all those things are about. And my goal there also is not so much to uh, take on a lot of students. It's to empower a lot of people and get you to become a person who can be giving your testimonials to your community and helping them move into the direction of biohacking, because that is innate wisdom. That is where we're coming from, and that is so very important. So that's what you're going to go through. In case that link expires, this is also the link, sandeepnath.com/apply. And I'm happy to take on questions. If you'd like to type any question in, I'd be more than happy to address it. So, I have one that's come up privately to me, which is how much does it cost? I mean, isn't that the first question that comes to everybody's mind? We operate from not only this mindset of there is no time, but also this mindset of there is no money. And I remember when I earned 40,000 rupees for the first time, some years ago. This thought had come to me that many years ago, when I was a little kid, my father used to earn 400 rupees a month. And at 400 bucks a month, he used to provide us a much better life than I could provide for myself and my wife at 40,000 bucks. So there's never enough money, kind of thing. But that was before I learned a lot of biohacking and a lot about energy. And straight answer to what it costs, it's not a one size fits all. It's about what's good for you, and we can discuss that over the call. It's not something that is going to make you rob a bank, and it's not something that's going to make me inordinately rich, but it's going to be value on either side and respect for time on either side.